All right, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Matt Dombrowski. I am an associate professor at the University of Central Florida, and I also work with Limitless Solutions, doing some creative direction. I'm joined today by my esteemed colleagues, Merdula, Julia, Remy, and Emily. Should rattle that off really quick, who are all here to speak on using STEAM to empower. So we do some really fun stuff at Limitless Solutions. We actually create bionic arms for kids, and we're going to talk a little bit about that and some other things we do, and all the unique disciplines that it takes at Limitless to produce this kind of mission that we have set forth, using creativity to empower kids with limb difference. So let me click. There we go. So again, University of Central Florida. We're located on the main campus off of Alafaya. And there we have multiple facets of the university campus. So Limitless Solutions is actually a direct support organization of the university. So we are connected to the university, and we are also a nonprofit. And our mission is to provide bionic limbs to kids free of charge. And so I've been teaching at UCF now for about 13, 14 years or so. And my primary focus is the creative side of things. So I have been a professional motion graphics artist for the past 20 years or so. I've done graphic design, I do 3D modeling, and I joined Limitless about 5 years ago or so to kind of help develop some unique creative facets of our mission. And so here, one of the things that I've primarily worked on is development of our video games, which later on Emily is going to talk all about and share some really cool pictures about why we make video games and how they relate to a child's bionic arm. So a little backstory about Limitless. Our founder, Albert Monero, and friends actually started this project at a kitchen table. And so here you can see the kind of stamped version of the arm versus one of our newer models of our arm. And this kind of mission basically was to provide kids who have limb difference with affordable bionic solutions. And Albert and his team, when they developed it, said, okay, well, why don't we give these away for free? So we lowered the typical price of a bionic limb by quite a bit by using 3D printing and kind of taking that cost down. And our biggest challenge with bionic limbs is typically kids grow so fast that it was really hard for insurance companies to want to cover the purchase of their bionic limbs. So think of those of you who have kids out there, as you grow, think of how fast they grow out of shoes. And this was the same way with a bionic limb. Sometimes there was even a one limb for life policy that insurance companies would cover. But again, the kid would outgrow it quite frequently. A lot of our users and families felt that they were not satisfied for the overall weight or fit. A lot of the bionic solutions were things like hooks, which are typically vilified in a lot of contemporary media, like Captain Hook and things like that. And that caused them to receive a lot of cultural pressures and really kind of hurt their confidence, with their limb difference. And our goal was to not only make these cost effective, but also make them super expressive and super cool. So that's where the challenge began. And Albert knew he needed a team of diverse thinkers to accomplish this. So Albert himself is an aerospace engineer, and a lot of his team members were engineers. And they started reaching out along to all the different colleges on UCF campus to kind of build a team that could best help develop this bionic limb mission. So our mission is first and foremost to advance accessibility and empower children through technology, to infuse engineering art together. So we're kind of going across the gamut of all of the different UCF colleges to kind of come together and produce our bionic arms. And then obviously one of the main reasons we're here today is to promote STEM and STEAM for a more inclusive future, because we feel at Limitless that many people going into the STEM and STEAM field, the careers that they are eventually going to go into may not even exist yet. So I know when I was in college, bionic arms and creating art and video games for bionic arms wasn't a career that I would ever fathom existed. And now here I am doing this. So very, very exciting. And the goal for our arms, as you can see, is to put the smile on our bionic kids' faces like you see here today. Yes, they can pick things up with the arms. We'll learn how they work and how they're made. but it's really about that confidence that that opens the door for them to be able to, speak to others about their disability and how people perceive them. Our Bionic kids are absolutely amazing individuals who are changing the world in their own right, and we can't wait to share a little bit about them today. So beyond Bionic arms, we also make training video games, like I mentioned. Our Bionic arms, which you'll learn a little bit from Julia on how they actually work, are based off of muscle flex. So to teach the kids not to overwork their muscles, we actually had to create training games, which Emily is going to talk about a little bit later, to help hone those different muscles. So why not learn in a fun, exciting way like video games? And then another project that we have uses that same muscle flex technology, and it's for those who use wheelchairs. We're currently working with Mayo Clinic to develop even video games for this project, and we call it Project Xavier. And Project Xavier uses EMG, so electromyography, muscle flex kind of technology, to flex the temporalis muscles and actually power a wheelchair without the use of the person's hands, which can give them a lot more independence and freedom when controlling their device. So these are just some of the projects that we work on with children and adults at Limitless every day. So we really had our big aha moment when we had help from a very special guest. So Merdula is going to speak about this a little later, but we developed one of our first initial arms with Robert Downey Jr. And he actually presented this arm to a little boy named Alex as Tony Stark. And it was, if you go ahead and hit up YouTube, we'll also include the link on the presentation at the end. But it's really amazing. So they both had their Iron Man arms. It went viral. And that's where it really made us realize that talking about our mission and being able to use creativity in media was just as important as the engineering itself. So we amplified our message through the use of creative tools. So again, empowering others through creativity doesn't end just with engineering. We have, even just today, we have a studio artist, a game designer, an engineer, a web designer, brand extraordinaire. We have all different types of students at Limitless to make this job happen. So I know there's a lot of people watching who want to get into STEM and STEAM and wonder, well, can I do that? Or I'm not great at math. Can I still go into that field? Absolutely. So this field's so great because it spreads across multiple disciplines. We work with surgeons and doctors and physical therapists and PR companies and everyone in between to amplify the voices of those amazing young people that you saw in the previous slides. And then these as well. These are the smiles we work for. And you can see that these arms really give this expressiveness to these kids. And I don't want to spoil Merdula's part of the talk, but she'll tell you a little bit about how they are before they wear them and how they are after they wear them and the change that we see right before our eyes. So again, we're really happy to be UCF Knights and to work with the community of those with limb difference to provide this experience. And most recently, we're actually moving toward also helping veterans and first responders with our Bionic mission. So we're really excited to kind of slowly unveil that branch of our Bionic reach. Like I said before, it's about being the microphone, not the voice. So in STEM and STEAM fields, it's really important that we understand our audience. And for us, we are serving our community that has limb difference or our community that is disabled. And we are not speaking for them. We are just amplifying their message, their wants, their needs. And every presenter today will slightly touch on the interaction that it takes with our audience to be able to produce such innovative products. We could not do this without our community. So it's so important that we communicate with one another. We talk to people who think differently. And, we really let those people who want the change pilot that change. So who are our students at Limitless? So our lab is primarily made up of undergraduate UCF students. And this kind of comes as a shock to some people because they assume maybe that we have like a whole arsenal of professional designers and whatnot. But from the get-go, it was really important to continue that student involvement within our program. So our students, as of this spring, we have around 28 interns, and This graphic's really amazing just for the fact that it just shows the scope of the university that one semester can cover at Limitless Solutions. We have many types of engineers, which Julia will eventually be able to talk about way more than I am. We have computer programmers, we have outreach and logistics and research students. We have game designers like Emily. We have people who do 3D design to design the shape and the molds of the model. We have Remy, who's here today, who's going to talk a little bit about the painting and the airbrushing and the manufacturing from the art standpoint of the arms. And then we have digital designers and graphic designers who help us advocate and promote our community. And myself, I'm one of the five faculty that work with Limitless. We have over 9 colleges represented, which is really amazing. And since 2015, we've had, as you can see, 168 alumni, which is just absolutely, and I know Mardula, you've been there for the majority of this too. It's just amazing to see that number. It's baffling. Like, there's been that many students, right? It feels like just yesterday. So our goal is to truly collaborate and bring different thinkers together to create innovation. And our goal also is to create positive impact in the communities that we serve. We really lean heavily on diversity, inclusivity, and interdisciplinary learning within our lab. Our students do not work for us. They serve our Limb Difference community. We are there to support them, our students and the community, in any way we can to help them innovate and positively impact their communities. So we're really excited to have some of these students here today to talk a little bit about the amazing things they do. And the keys to our student success really come with their ability to communicate with one another. So, you'll hear that in their presentations today as well. Julia and Emily and Remy and Mardula and all of us are constantly pinging ideas off of one another to kind of push the envelope and try to innovate and make our products better for the community that we serve. And a lot of this comes from our students' really strong 21st century skills. So yes, STEAM and STEM is very important. Academics, absolutely, very important to succeed. But the ability to have critical thinking, communication, collaboration, understand technology is a constant trait of all of our students. Every student that I have here today, and Julia, Emily, and Remy, are creatives. And no matter if they're an artist or not, they still are a creative thinking individual. And that is a very important skill to have in this day and age to succeed, and especially to create something maybe that didn't exist before. Our students have gone on to places like Microsoft, Lockheed Martin, Texas Instruments. Some have worked with Universal Creative. We just recently had a graphic designer to Electronic Arts in Maitland. So that's really amazing to see. And these companies, these Fortune 500 companies, are looking for those 21st century skills in their hires. And they actually look for those even more than just technical ability. They want people who can communicate, who can be flexible, who can collaborate with other different types of thinkers beyond their own to create one singular product. So, like I said, it's about breaking down these silos. At the university that I work at, I can see from the art building, the psychology building. I'm at an arm's reach, no pun intended, to the engineering building. And all of these things just take a few moments to go into these buildings and ask the subject matter experts what they think. And I think sometimes there's a hesitancy to someone who's just really good at engineering or just really good at art, that maybe they're not allowed to talk to people who do different things than them. Well, at Limitless, we actually encourage that. We want that cross-disciplinary communication. We want that back and forth to create, like I say here in the slide, to create that community. And with that community, I think everyone here can agree, like, yes, we work every day at this, but it doesn't really feel like work sometimes, does it? It feels like we're doing something else, right? Something bigger. So I'm going to hand it off to the subject matter experts here away from me. I'm going to just sit back and let them do their thing. But first up on the plate, we want to talk a little bit about the engineering. And with that said, I'm going to hand it to the talented Julia Berry, who is going to blow your mind with the amazing, like, you do all sorts of engineering stuff, Julia. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience watching who know what engineering is, but may not know what that kind of day-to-day facet is and how it relates to bionic arms. So I'll pitch it over to you. Without further ado, Julia.
Thank you very much. Well, I do tend to dabble in different things all the time. So hello, everyone. My name is Julia Berry. I am an engineering student assistant here at Limitless. I am currently studying with my bachelor's in mechanical engineering as well as general biology. I've been with Limitless for about 2 years now, and I'm involved with a lot of the bionic arm production. As you can see, uh, I became an engineer because I enjoy designing, building, and fixing machines. I used to sit in my room when I was younger and play with my Legos. I know it doesn't sound very original, but it was true. I used to sit there and I used to make Lego houses. And eventually I turned to making windmills and sculptures of my favorite characters. Uh, when I got older, I learned that my curiosity for understanding how objects work was actually useful. I was assigned one day to the task of fixing my family's vacuum, and I took the entire thing apart and realized that the problem was the power switch. That day showed me that I enjoyed helping others. And naturally, when I came to college, I walked through Limitless's door and haven't looked back. I started off as a scholar and I learned to become a student assistant. I've been involved with many projects here at Limitless. I first started off making an Ironman arc reactor, which used a modeling software called Fusion 360, which you guys can see right there in the middle of the screen. It's the blue glowing object. And once that project was completed, I moved on to a hovercraft, which you can see right there. And my more recent projects now involve the designing of sleeves as well as the designing of bucks for thermoforming. But the thing that took most of my time for a few semesters was this. This right here is the next slide. Thanks, Matt. This right here is the Limitless Bionic Arm. As you can see, there are 3 main sections to it. There is the handpiece, the battery core, and then the cuff on the bottom. Next slide. This is how it works. The arm is majority 3D printed with using ABS plastic, which, get this, is actually the same plastic used for Legos. It is controlled by electromyography sensors, aka EMG sensors, that pick up on the tiny electrical signals that your muscles produce. Those pulses are then converted into data. They travel through the wires up the battery cord to the electronics board in the back of the hand. That board then takes the data, and depending on how strong of a pulse was produced, it does a gesture or some sort of pre-programmed activity. A lot of times we do like the peace sign or the rock on symbol. As some kids like to think of it, though, it's more like Spider-Man at this point. The arm can be used to pick up multiple objects, like light relative objects, and it can be customized to suit a child's creative expression. As you can see here, I am playing with a Rubik's Cube, and don't judge me, I wasn't actually trying to solve it, but I was trying to see that this arm is working functionally, because I actually just recently fixed this arm. And you can see there's the cosmetic piece on the palm, and there's also for the sleeve. To the right is a basic model of how our arms are laid out when it comes to our parts. Next slide. The next slide actually has one of our bionic kids receiving her new bionic arm. Look how happy she is. The next slide. Now, our arms haven't always looked this way. To the left, you can see one of our very first bionic arms, and to the right, you can see a more recent model. We have many reasons why we changed up the arm. One of them is for increased modularity. If you remember from the previous slides, our current arm is about 3 pieces. We have the hand core, the battery, and the cuff. And those sections can actually be broken up into smaller sections. And that doesn't even include the cosmetic pieces. Our old arm, though, was mainly about 2 parts, and that included the cosmetic piece. So when one part of the arm was broken, the entire arm was broken. as you can kind of like infer, that wasn't very efficient when it comes to material use. And so we looked forward to innovating and making it easier for our arms to be replaceable in some place. And it's still there, our arms are still being innovated. Next slide. Oh, yeah, go back 2 slides. One more. Awesome. So our arms have been actually subjected to a lot of rounds of strength tests by not only my supervisor, but also the most intensive inspectors of production performance, which are our bionic kids. I tell you, a kid had left 20 minutes from our lab and they had broken a finger while riding back from in the car. They are very efficient. They take their job very seriously. And to match their efficiency, Limitless tries to come up with more productive production techniques to help with the demand. We have now begun in experimenting with injection molding as well as thermoforming to increase the strength while reducing the weight and the production time needed to make them. Next slide. So right here is an animation of injection molding. Now, I don't particularly work a lot with injection molding, but here's the basic premise of it. So hot plastic is injected into a cavity and that is created by a mold, the purple being the top part of the mold and the green being the bottom. That plastic is then cooled while encased, and when hardened, it is injected out of the machine. Next slide. For thermoforming, the basic premise is that a sheet of ABS plastic is melted underneath a heating hood, and a platform from underneath full of bucks is pressed into the plastic from below, as you can see in the video shown right there with our talented Remy helping out. The vacuum is then activated from underneath, and with a little help, the desired shape of the buck is formed. A buck is like a model of an object, but with a flat side to one end. You can see actually an example of them in the bottom right corner. It's actually cool because those sleeves are actually a set that I had personally worked on. So it's very dear to my heart. These newly formed sleeves are then cut out, sanded slightly, and then painted. The sanding is just to help with the promotion of the paint to stick to the material better. Now, all these efforts and innovations all point towards the same goal, to help and promote the personality of the Bionic kids, to encourage them to shine through and be themselves. And that's where the expressive design comes in. Next slide. And we're going to hand it off to Remy now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Remy Marasa. I am currently in my senior year at UCF, getting a studio art degree. I am going for a BA while also conducting an honors in the major. The honors in the major started super late into my undergraduate degree, and Limitless is a big reason as to why I went ahead and took that step. While working here, I had a great opportunity to witness almost half of the deliveries get done. And in that time, I got to see all of these kids transform and break out of their shells and really become their own. And that process just showed me how much interaction with others in your life and being able to express yourself creatively allows you to be yourself and feel confident in your skin. So in that time of getting to work with all these super high-end, high quality painting products and materials, I also got to get into academic research, which has been awesome. I'm working on an undergraduate thesis about identity formation and art and society. It has been a wonderful time to get to explore that world on the side, while also coming into the lab every week and getting to work with the best paints possible in one of the coolest mediums that I have never been exposed to in my life other than at Limitless. You know, I came to do my studio art degree at UCF and I mainly work with ceramics and wood. And I've never heard of airbrush painting, and then I got in here and it opened up this whole new world where I'm actually now applying airbrush painting to my other works in sculpture and ceramics, because it's just the most fun way to paint, in my opinion now. if we could head to the next slide. I wanted to share this image with all of you. This is a drawing that was done on a napkin by one of our original Bionic kids, Annika. You guys have seen some videos of her using her arm already. What was really awesome about this napkin is that she just did this on her own. We didn't ask her to design anything. She was just on her way to visit her grandma and was thinking about all these beautiful trees that she was looking at on her ride, and got out a napkin and a pen and made this, and her mom sent it over to us, and we absolutely fell in love with it. We loved the idea that she was so into the design process of her arm. We wanted to be able to bring this into the real world. So with the help of my previous mentor, Anna Kester, she worked with Annika to design these sketches, and she took that napkin sketch and just elevated it to a whole nother level of design. Now, Anna may be one of the most amazing drawing artists that I've ever met in my life. So while these probably only took her a few minutes, they look incredible. They hold all the design and femininity that Annika was looking for in these sketches. And we got to see these sketches transform from here all the way to the finished product, which would be on the next page. If you look in the upper left corner, you can see where it says ethereal, and that's what we went ahead and named this sleeve. And you can see the past iterations on the right side of the screen. And Julia had kind of talked about that and how the sleeves, how the arm design changed from 5 years ago to today. The sleeves also go through that. We constantly update them to help work with new processes like thermoforming. A lot of our sleeves were edited. We can head over to the next one. You can see here is our customization page. So it was really awesome to get to work with Annika and to have her design her own sleeve. Unfortunately, that's not an opportunity that we can give to all of our Bionic kids. So a way that we have worked in creativity and customization to our program is through this customization portal. The Bionic kids each get to go onto this portal and they can select from a number of different classes that we offer. Some of the classes are limitless original designs, and some are partnerships with video game companies that we have done over the years. As they play around in this portal, they can individually select different areas and change the color groups. I made this one a nice like red, blue, and gold just to give it that warrior shine. If we could go to the next page, I can kind of show you how this customization page plays into my role at Limitless. So when the Bionic kids head onto that portal and they create the arm that you previously saw, they send me a mock-up sheet, which is what you're looking at all the way on the left. It's a super 2D flat image with just showing me what colors they want, where they want the colors. We then take that information, bring it into Photoshop and kind of create a mood board for this to reference as we're painting, because we never want to create an arm that looks as flat as the customization. So we just get this going. That way we can actually get into the thick of painting and create the depth and the dimension that you see all the way on the right. So this process sometimes takes about a week. Sometimes it can take 2 days. It depends on the type of sleeve. Julia had mentioned earlier that we have thermoforming and 3D printing. This sleeve was 3D printed. So after it came out of the printer, we had to go about sanding it, which took about probably 12 hours. And then we also had to paint it. So a lot of the times it's not so much the painting that takes the time, but all of the prep work that goes into it. And here you can see kind of the fruits of that prep work. Over on the left, Anna with the headband and the goggles is doing finishing touches on some of the sleeves. We work on them until we absolutely cannot work on them anymore, because as an artist, you never know when to put the paintbrush down. We always want to keep making it better. But she is working on some final touches. You can see a Bionic kid that came up to her and just wanted to know what was happening in the lab, the process that went into her Bionic sleeve. So we always take the time to share that information and kind of show what we do on a really intricate level to the Bionic kids. We want them to be involved in the design, the creation, and really enjoy coming to the lab and having a whole experience when they receive their bionic arm. And I think that this little girl loved it based on the big smile all the way on the right. I'm also a huge fan of her bionic arm. It was such a fun piece to paint. Here we have Zach and Ange, who are two of our engineering students. You can see Ange getting deep into the painting. She did an excellent job designing an entire piece and painting it all on her own. It was really incredible to get to work with a mechanical engineer who fully respected the painting process and wanted to make sure that they did everything perfectly to the T, and we had a great time. It was such a wonderful experience to get to work with an engineering student and bring them into like my team's world and get to create a piece that was designed by her, modeled by her, printed, painted, all of it. It was so cool to watch her go through this process. Here we have a couple of more pictures of our interns from other teams working with our painting interns. Anna is in both of these photos, and she's kind of just going through here, walking around, talking to all of our different students, because when we get into a crunch time, we take all the help we can get. I have been in the back sanding our pieces, trying to paint, and students from our Opal team come up and they offer a hand. Students from game design will help us out, engineering students. We all really work together to make sure that our goals are met and that there's a high level of quality to our pieces. Here I have just a nice artsy shot of our paint. I really love coming into work and getting to handle some of the highest quality automotive paint that there is. Here you can see a bit more of the bottles of paint. We work with a company called Createx, and they are just such a wonderful company. We started buying our paint from them, and when we sent them a year in review showing them how their paint was being used, they reached back out to us. And they were just amazed. They were so happy to have their company be a part of this mission. And it has created just such a wonderful partnership. And I've actually gotten to have some FaceTime calls with the CEO of this company and get to really like talk about how their paints are used and how they're producing them, the chemicals that are going into it to make sure that we get consistent results every time. Like Matt said that he never thought that he would be creating video games for bionic arms when he was in college. I never imagined that I would be meeting with paint technicians to understand the chemical makeup of their paints. It's just such an awesome time. And then on the left, you can see the more production type of paint. That's our clear coats, and we paint them with these giant airbrush guns that have about a 6-foot spray radius. When we're outside with our giant respirators on, you just feel so cool, so high tech. Really love it. And then if we could head to the next slide, here are some shots of the stencils that we can use to apply texture to our arms. This is something that we've gotten into a bit more the last few months. Previously, we were just painting solid colors and gradients and using blue tape to make our own stencils with X-Acto knives. And like I said, we're hitting that higher level of quality across all fields. We started working with laser cut stencils, getting more precise airbrush guns to control the thickness and the speed at which the paint comes out. That little piece all the way to the right, it's black in a yellow case, is called an air restrictor. And that actually allows me to create different effects of the paint when it comes out of the gun, give it more of a diffuse soft glow or a sharp line. And it's so cool to see how all these little mechanical pieces that you look at and you're like, oh, that's just a little part to this, to see how they all work together to create such different effects in the paint is mind-blowing. I enjoy every minute of it. And I love working in a lab where I can walk up to any engineer, a few of my bosses, and they can explain all of that to me right away. I feel like there isn't a day where I don't learn a new thing at Limitless. Here we have our thank you wall. As people provide donations to Limitless, we send out a mini arm, which is what you see here. We send out one mini arm and we put a plaque up on our wall with another mini arm to honor their donation. The plaques are laser cut in the lab using a Glowforge machine. It's super awesome, super fun to get to watch the laser cutter work and zip through and make all those fine details. And then the mini arms are also made in the lab. We 3D printed an original mini arm, sanded it down, made it smooth, and then worked on creating silicone molds so that we can inject the molds with a 2-part plastic solution and create a really easy, fast drying and affordable mold to use as these tokens of appreciation. Not only do we have a cross of different teams working for this mini arm project, the paint team also gets to use these as their very first steps in learning how to paint. Before I'd even started at Limitless, I came in for my interview and was asked like, hey, do you want to paint a mini arm, maybe see how it works? And I was super on board. And that was the very first time that I got to use the paint and the airbrush guns and really see what I would be doing. And I fell in love with it that day. I think I spent about 3 hours there with the other painter, just talking and trying to make this perfect. So it's really fun to have 3D modelers, engineers, and painters all work on this project to make these mini arms come to life and show our appreciation to our donors, because it's what keeps us running. It's what keeps us going. Here is an action shot from one of our previous projects with Cyberpunk 2077. This was such a cool project to be a part of. Matt had previously mentioned that we will be trying to work with veterans and first responders in the future, and this was kind of the kickstart of that project. Getting to work with a company that is just so detailed and meticulous in their story and their world as Cyberpunk is was incredible. It was an amazing experience to be given access to digital industry assets and get to translate that and create a piece that's made in a video game in real world. Most of the time, the stuff that we see in video games are designs that aren't feasible to happen in the real world because the creators know that it's never going to come into our reality. It's made to exist in a fake world. So getting to work and try a bunch of different techniques to make sure that we can replicate what was intended to live in their reality and ours was such an awesome experience. We used new techniques like that new airbrush gun that I had previously talked about, and creating this honeycomb stencil to create texture throughout the entire sleeve. Here's another shot of some of our arms. You can see up close the really fine level of work that goes into these arms. And I just want you to keep in mind, almost all of this detail is created with an airbrush gun. We always try to keep the paintbrush in the drawer. It's only used for little touch-ups and whatnot. So we have really pushed ourselves to be able to get levels of detail like that honeycomb or these glowing lights that you can see in the upper left corner. It's all done through paint and it's really awesome. Here's some more high quality shots of these arms. These are all 4 different types of designs that you could create. My favorite happens to be the pink and yellow one in the bottom right corner, using different types of paints like fluorescent and pearl paints like we used on this arm. It's just so incredible to watch something that's so flat, even though these are 3D pieces, really pop and come to life. And getting to work with the paint every day just makes such a fun job. How could you not love getting to create these arms? Here is a quick overcap of our video game partnerships. 343 Industries has helped us out for so long, as well as League of Legends. They have been core partnerships in our time from 2015 to now, and we've recently started working with Cyberpunk and Assassin's Creed. The Assassin's Creed one, I have to say, gave me the most credibility in my family. My brother-in-law sends me pictures of him playing Odyssey now, and he's like, when are you going to make this arm? When's this one coming out? I'm like, I can't say anything, I'm so sorry. But it is super awesome to get to work with these companies and just be walking around on the street and hear people talking about Cyberpunk. I think when that was released in December, it blew up my feed continuously on all social medias, and the entire time like scrolling through like, I got to work with this company. The opportunities that Limitless creates for students is just endless. It's really incredible. If we scroll through, you can kind of see the final products of some of these arms. We used our laser cutter to create those small stamps that you see on the hand and right by the wrist. On that hand plate, you have about 16 numbers going through a 1/2 inch space. To see the laser cutter cut something so fine and small was just incredible. I don't know the world of lasers and how precise and exact they are, but I'm getting a little bit closer to understanding all of it while working at Limitless. So it was really awesome to develop new types of techniques. This is a shot of our Assassin's Creed arms, and right now we currently have this sleeve, which is called the Hades sleeve, and we use new types of airbrush guns to get precise paint done on the tips on the top of the sleeves and all the little studs and dots on the arms. It was really incredible to also use new technology for this collaboration. A shot of our Halo inspired Master Chief arm from the Halo video games. These ones are super incredible. There's something about seeing our hand painted completely black that's just really cool, and it reminds you of how much the paint can change the design and aesthetic of an arm and completely create a new piece. And here is our League of Legends collaboration. These arms are so much fun because they're just works of art on their own. They're super 3D, super dimensional. They're always fun to sand and paint and get to see how the shadows really take over. I'm gonna pass this over to Emily.
Hi, I am Emily Lother. I am a sophomore here at UCF. I'm double majoring, getting my Bachelor's of Science in Game Design and Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing. And I've been at Limitless for about 1.5 years. I have also been doing studio art for most of my time in school. So that was the foundation that I brought in when I started working at Limitless. And I have in the past worked on one of our older training game, Limitless Adventure, as well as working on a new project for Project Savior. So we can go to the next slide. So I got started working on Limitless Adventure, and you can see some of the art that I did for that right here. And this is one of our games that helps our Bionic kids learn how to use their arms and train with the controls. How these games work, we have touched on a little bit already. Where the EMG sensors, pretty much the same way that they work with the arms, how Julia was talking about. When you flex your muscles, it sends the signal to the game. And we can actually go to the next slide as well. And so, like, instead of pressing like A on a controller, you might flex and jump, as opposed to instead of pressing A to jump, you flex. Here we have some shots of some of our kids or other visitors playing some of these games, because it is very important that we are listening. Like Matt talked about, and like the others have talked about, it's important that we are the microphone, not the voice. And so we pay attention to what our Bionic kids like in these games and what they don't like and what works for them. So here we have a video of one of our kids with some of those controllers, and you can see how it's working a little bit. You can see the smiles and the snacks. All right, and so Limitless Adventure specifically, the game that I started out working on, is a platformer game where you work your way through different worlds using magical abilities to get past your enemies and obstacles, where here the strength of your flex will determine what sort of ability you use, or like 3 different stages of them. Like here, this little lightning shot, you can shoot it to like 3 different lengths, sort of thing. My first project with this was developing a storyline and making a narrative. I mostly do art, but I am also majoring in creative writing. And it's important that our games are fun and engaging, and they don't just feel like a chore. Like we want our kids to enjoy this. It's not just homework. I played some like weird math video games on my DS when I was a kid. That's not what we're aiming for. Here we have a video of our other game, Limitless Runner, which is just one of those endless runner type games where the flex will determine like how long your jump is. And Limitless Runner is actually, you can see some of those wider shots. Limitless Runner is actually currently available for download on the App Store and on the Google Play Store. You can play it like the mobile games you're more familiar with, but if you want to, you can download it. And it is, first off, a nice introduction to some of what Limitless makes. And also you could imagine how it might be like to play this sort of game with our EMG controllers, where like every time you hold down on the screen to do a long jump, that might be a longer flex with the controllers. And so it is very interesting. When I started last spring working at Limitless, one of the first things I did was just sit there and play through Limitless Adventure and Limitless Runner. I don't think I beat the high score on Runner, but it did take me a couple days to beat Adventure a few times. I think we can go into the next slide. And with our arms, it's a workout, like you're flexing your muscles, it's hard. And so that's why you have to listen to our kids, and also why playtesting it yourself is important. And so along with that is our Project Xavier, our wheelchair project, and we are currently also developing training games for that as well. And here we have a little diagram of how it works, where you flex the muscles, your temporalis muscles, as opposed to on your arms, with the sensors picking up those electrical signals and sending it to the controls. It sends it to the wheelchair or to our training games. Here we have like the controls for how to drive it. With the arms, it's a little bit more about like the strength of the flex. For Project Xavier, it is made for, it's currently mostly made for adults with ALS or amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, where your brain loses connection to your muscles, making mobility difficult to impossible. And so you don't necessarily have control of your hands. So it's about the number of times that like you clench your jaw, like once to move forward or twice to move back, or like which side of your face you might flex. And that is how you control our wheelchair using Project Xavier, and also how you navigate through our games. And so what goes into developing one of these games? Brainstorming is the first step, as it should be for most things. And we came in knowing a few things, where we wanted it to have a narrative to keep that interest. And we wanted a simple art style with 4 different worlds to explore, with our worlds being based off of our arm designs: Serenity, Ethereal, Warrior, and Shadow. And it's going to be in level segments, so you can go through in little bite-sized pieces. Because these sort of controls can be tiring, short and sweet is the way to go for these levels, and then it has to scale in difficulty. You don't want to start out super easy, but you also do need to have some sort of challenge the further you go. So we did jump ahead a little bit and get started on some 3D models, but here are also my level designs, where on the previous slide you saw I got started on like the world as a whole and how it might piece together, and I came up with a few designs that I sent to the rest of the team. And when we decided on one, I got to start working on these individual levels. This part of the design is twofold, where you have to have them look good because it's a world that you're interacting with and you want it to be appealing. It's a game, but you also need to make sure that they're functional. These levels have to grow in difficulty and be varied and be accessible. You need it to be functional at the early levels. And so our first level is a straight line. And then you can start adding in more turns later. And in later worlds, we might have more obstacles, but for now, Serenity is about getting started and moving forward. That's our first world, is Serenity. There's time for things to get more complicated down the line. Optional objectives and side paths are also something we paid attention to, as they give other options to the players, especially once you start replaying the game. When you are learning a new song on an instrument, you don't just play the song once and then put it to the side. It is a continuous process. And so we have these little side objectives or alternate paths that you can take if you play this game multiple times, because nothing is more annoying than replaying the tutorial of a game that you've beaten 3 times. So once these level concepts are done and approved, it is time to start piecing together our levels using our 3D models. Here we have some of our examples for Serenity. While I am working on those concept art pieces, another member of our games team, Paula, is working on these 3D models, cleaning them up, painting them so that they are ready to assemble into the larger world. So we can take all these little puzzle pieces and assemble them by adding in the trees and the rivers and the bridges and such to make the environment feel alive and interesting. We can go to the next slide where I have more examples. And so now you have this world that you can move around in and interact with. And on the next slide, we actually have a 3D model of an example of the electric wheelchair that we might use in the game made to replicate the one that we have in the lab. And there is still a lot to work on with this game. It is still very much a work in progress, and I am learning as I go. We can go to the last slide. I came into Limitless and to college in general expecting to stick with what I was familiar with, which is very much drawing and painting and illustration, because that's what my background is in. And then when I got started on Limitless Adventure, that was what I was working on. I, however, picked game design as one of my majors because I wanted to learn these new things. And Limitless has very much been a large part of that for me. Where it has helped push me outside my comfort zone and get involved in things that I also, like Remy and Matt, did not think that I would be working on. I thought that I would be doing concept art and character art and stuff like that for random games. I was not ever expecting to be designing games to be used to help people train how to use bionic arms or how to control a wheelchair. I made my first 3D model last semester, a treasure chest that you saw a few slides back. And it was a relatively small thing overall, but it was also just very cool where I had this little moment of I made a thing that is going to be in a game that people will play and that will help people and hopefully be fun. And I am looking forward to it. I can get back into the lab and see some of our Bionic kids again and some of the other people playing through these games because this has been a wonderful experience. Where I learn new things every day. I can pass it over to Merdula now.
Thank you, Emily. So hello, everyone. My name is Merdula, and I am the branding director here at Limitless. So my background is I have earned 2 degrees in graphic design, a Bachelor of Fine Arts, then a Bachelor of Arts in web design. And what was cool is I actually started out at Limitless as an intern myself. And have stayed around after graduation as well. And basically my kind of role at Limitless is taking all these pieces together when we're talking about our mission and focusing it on advocacy and the brand, making sure that we're always staying true to our mission, no matter what comes out, whatever we produce, how we interact with the families and Bionic kids, to always make sure that 3D Hope is at the forefront, right? That we're always valuing inclusivity, that we're always valuing our diversity of our team, we're supporting the experience of our students and the partnerships that we create. And so if you go to the next slide, kind of the thing that drives this goal of keeping everything on brand, as my little phrase that we like to use. How do you encourage learning when the stakes are higher? This question kind of touches on the experience that each of the students have kind of mentioned so far, as well as things that I've experienced as a student coming into where I am now, is elevating moments. Having the Power of Moments, which is a specific book by Chip and Dan Heath that talks about this concept of elevating and taking specific instances that seem ordinary or normal in everyday life, but when you bring it to a moment that is pivotal and changes someone's life, it can stick with you in your memories forever. It can cause a change in your life that you would have never expected. And I think almost everyone here mentioned that they had that moment where everything changed and what they expected was going to happen did not happen. And so the specific defining moments of what a power moment is elevation, insight, pride, and connection. Everyone here on our team, as well as our bionic kids as well, have had that moment where things shifted, whether it was when we met them, when we first got them to play the game, when they first received their arm, when in the last slide you saw Robert Downey Jr. and Alex, as we hinted at earlier, we had that amazing moment where Robert Downey Jr. agreed to give one of our first bionic arms to one of our first children. That was a power changing moment for Alex himself, our bionic kid. Coming into this program, and as well as the team itself. The whole mission of Limitless has grown so much since that moment. And so everything that we do at Limitless, when it comes to interdisciplinary collaboration, when it comes to the way we interact with our kids, is always focused on this idea of creating that moment for them. It's not just handing off a bionic arm and, you know, they go off on their own and like use it however they want. It's not just a student coming in, like we mentioned previously, just doing the work and then going home. It's an experience, and we're very careful to make sure that we craft that experience for everyone involved so that it is life-changing. It is impacting the community. It is leaving lasting change that can push us forward in our communities to change how we think about limb difference, to change how we think about interdisciplinary teams, to change how we think about what it means to change your community, that anybody has the power to do that. And taking that concept of creating big moments that are impactful and lasting have led us down this path and kept us true to our mission, no matter what venture we break out in, no matter what new technology we create. And so if we go to the next slide, kind of the images that you saw before had the side of how our bionic kids kind of transform when they receive their arm. I remember whenever they came in for delivery day, it was very poignant. Every child would be particularly shy. They would hide behind their parents. They would be afraid to kind of speak up. And then as soon as they get their arm, you just see on the images that there's just so much life and vibrancy and confidence that they exude after they interact with us and come back to our lab every single time from that point forward. And now, like a year later, there's been such a transformation in their character. And then in the next slide, we have a similar experience when we talk about our students. Julia, Emily, Remy have all hinted at this moment for them as well, where they realized they were able to go into a field or do a new technology that they never thought they were capable of, or that they didn't expect that they were going to go into. Even Matt and myself have had those moments as well. So across the field, from students to staff to our bionic kids, having that pivotal moment where things are made clear that the possibilities are limitless. There's nothing that we can't do when we put your mind to it. And you're surrounded by a community of people who also agree with that sentiment. And if you go to the next slide, one of those facets is that peer-to-peer mentorship that we mentioned multiple times that makes this possible, is breaking down those silos, thinking about teamwork in a completely different way, where it doesn't have to be the engineers work with the engineers, the artists work with the artists, the underclassmen work together, and the seniors stay in their silo too. It has to have this intermingling for us to succeed, because that's how we learn, that's how we grow. We can't learn about different things outside of our own scope if we don't talk to other subject matter experts. And we can't learn and grow if we aren't able to communicate with the people that have traversed down that path before us, and get advice from those who have already done these things, from our mentors, from our staff. So, and then going to the next slide, continuing with that idea, also being able to bring this kind of collaborative teamwork and effort to our communities through STEAM, through camps, through inviting public school students to come to our labs as well and experience that mentorship from our undergraduate students to K through 12, through middle schoolers and high schoolers who are also aspiring, and as some who might be watching today, aspiring to go into something that they might be afraid that they aren't capable of doing. And everything that we do at Limitless, whether it be for the bionic kids or for students or for staff, is for us to dispel that myth that that definitely isn't a barrier. And on the next slide, kind of continuing to talk about the importance of mentorship that I mentioned earlier. The interaction between the students and the staff, everybody's continuously learning no matter how far down the path we've come or no matter when we started. Everyone has something to learn from each other, whether it be Matt and myself learning from Julia, Emily, and Remy, who are subject matter experts in their own fields, or them learning from us. Being able to have that open-mindedness and that humbleness to understand that we're always going to not have all the knowledge, and it's totally okay to ask questions and talk to people from across the aisle that don't necessarily think like you, but might have some really interesting insight. And that's what's led to our innovation. That's what's led to our arms being a combination of so many unique disciplines coming out the other end in such a unique way. And then external mentorships, taking this to the next level, where not only is it just our team and the K through 12 community and the Bionic kids, it's other partnerships and corporations that we mentioned in the PowerPoint as well, the video game companies that we've partnered with, donors that we are use the mini arms to thank. All of these different pieces come together beautifully in this puzzle where everyone is working towards creating those moments and improving upon one another by discussing this mission and reaching out to help our Bionic kids, because they are also being pulled in and involved in the mission as well. They're still a central part of us succeeding and moving forward. And then if we go to the next slide, this kind of talks even more, and you can see listed at the bottom some more partners that we didn't even mention before, that play a pivotal role in our mission being pushed forward, that are able to create those moments that we would have not been able to create ourselves without their the help of their IP, the funding, the support, the resources. And so companies like Autodesk, Adobe, Stratasys, and then other partners like Cratex for the paint, video game partners who provided the IP for the arms that kids can use to express themselves. You can kind of see how everything comes together and plays a role in contributing to the success of the mission, and the mission being empowering everyone that is involved, whether it be the students, staff on our team, the Bionic kids, or our partners as well. And if you go to the next slide, the takeaway here that we kind of want to mention is finding your limitless moment, finding your power moment, that thing that really switches your mindset and gets you to believe in something that you might not have believed that you were capable of before. That's what kind of runs everything that we do at Limitless. That's what propels us forward, is being able to create that moment where we realize, oh, this is definitely possible. We can succeed and achieve this goal. And there is nothing that could really stop you if you have a support system and a belief and a will to continue to do things and make the world a better place. And so I think if we go one more slide forward, there's a quote that kind of really encapsulates everything that we talk about really nicely. And it's kind of something that is based very heavily in what I do at Limitless. Is inclusive design doesn't mean you're designing one thing for all people. You're designing a diversity of ways to participate so that everyone has a sense of belonging. And that perfectly sums up everything that we've kind of discussed before, where everyone that is involved in our mission, no matter who they are or what their experience is or what their role is, everyone's kind of working together in equal capacity to succeed in this mission. And so it really does take everyone's involvement, and that changes the way that we create solutions and products, that it's not just about tailoring it to one group of people. It's about making sure that your solution encapsulates as many people as possible. And that should be the thought process from the get-go.
Thank you so much, Mardula. So hopefully everyone watching today really enjoyed the different perspectives that we all have, that we come together and kind of empower our Bionic kids and their voices. And we're so happy to work with Limitless and make an impact on the community and produce these amazingly beautiful Bionic arms. And just to kind of leave you all with a statement, I love this quote: if the path before you is clear, you're probably on someone else's. And I think this applies to anyone looking to get into the STEM and STEAM fields, that, that path is not there yet. And it's your job to forge that path and to come up with your new innovative ideas and change the world for the better in whatever you do. So don't let anyone tell you that can't be done. Just reply to them, it hasn't been done yet. And that's something to keep in mind to kind of push you through and get these amazingly creative ideas out there. As you do this, remember what we talked about today. Every team, we talk about collaboration, breaking down silos, be proactive, always listen and absorb and think about things. And more importantly, be creative and try to empower others with whatever you do. That's going to make our world such a better place for all of us. And that's what we all want for the future moving forward. So thank you again. Thank you to all the amazing speakers as well. Thank you, Susan and Jacob, for the nice comment there. We appreciate it. Be sure to follow us at Limitless 3D or at limitless-solutions.org, where you can find out more about our program. And again, this will be recorded, and we'll be able to, hopefully you all can watch back and have some great takeaways. So thanks again. We look forward to hearing from you all soon on social media. Have a great day.